Welcome to the Karena Virginia Podcast. I'm so glad you're here with me, and together we can co create. And in this space together, we expect the best, but we don't only expect it, we get it because that's the law. And I am going to share with you everything that I know about the law of attraction and manifestation and how it works, where the secrets are, where the glitches are, and where we get stuck. So I'm thrilled to be able to have an opportunity to share all of these things with you because I am not exaggerating when I tell you that I have seen and experienced miracles. And I've been doing this work for a very, very long time. And in time, I'll share where I first learned about the law of attraction. It was way before any of the books in our generation came out. They were much older books that I found at a church sale, and it was as if they showed up for me. And sometimes I see teenagers running around, and their moms look at me and wink because those are babies that I like to say were co-created by the divine, by their mother, and by a lot of these tools that I'll be sharing with you today and throughout the entire podcast and whenever we are together. So please tune in on Spotify, Amazon, on YouTube to watch, and just know that we'll be here twice a month and we'll be doing our best to bring you joy and manifestation and the art of living your best life. So today we're going to be talking about ancestral healing. And I want to share a little story about how I started to understand this. It was quite a while ago, and again way before it became trendy. And I was telling a friend of mine a story, and she said, "Wow, you need to brand that." And I said, "Brand it? No, I'm not into all that stuff. I just teach and whatever comes through. And branding and all of that, that's just such an illusion." And then that's when all of these beautiful spiritual teachings take ownership. Someone owns this, someone owns that. To me, it's all from the divine. Nobody owns any of these spiritual teachings, and a lot of what is coming out is not reinvented. We don't reinvent the wheel. So sometimes they're downloads, and when there are downloads, those downloads go to many people who are open to receiving them. So it's not just that we get to own any part of this. True spirituality is sharing everything that we can to help uplift the planet without taking ownership for it. So I said, "No, I'm not going to brand it." And she said, "But that's really intense stuff. You need to teach it." So I said, "Okay, I'll start teaching it." And I've seen a lot of people heal from this work. So the way it started was I had a I had a client who had found me through an interview, an online interview, and reached out to me and said that she had gained so much weight. Pause. Troy, did I tell this story already on this podcast about the woman who was like 400 pounds? Okay, good. Okay. So, pause. We'll cut that out and then I'll start again. Keep the beginning in, but just cut that pause out. So, this woman said she didn't want to do yoga. She just wanted to talk and she wanted friendship. And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Is there anything you want to work on?" And she said that she was so overweight that she had to have a special car. She couldn't get on an airplane and that she still went to work, but it was hard for her to get through certain doors. And I never asked her how much she weighed. I just had so much compassion for her. And she shared with me the amount of food that she would eat at times. And it was not just an addiction because she had been through so many addiction programs and she had been away for months at a time to lose this weight, but it always came back and she wasn't able to stop. So she said, there's nothing anybody can do to help me. I just want some friendship. And I said, okay, we can do that. So I'll be here. I'll hold space for you. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. And she was very cozy to chat with. And the way that I work with clients most of the time is without video. And it's because I like to close my eyes to go into the healing energy, and also because it gives the client the opportunity to feel very safe in whatever environment, whatever space they need, and they can close their eyes as well. And then there isn't any facial expressions that could be misread. So I remember exactly where I was. Um, my kids were upstairs, my husband was upstairs, and I went onto the couch where my son would play video games in the basement. And I remember talking to her and I remember putting my head back and I remember exactly what the couch looked like and we have moved from that house, but I remember the leather of the couch was very cold and I remember being covered in a blanket. And it was probably winter time because I remember it being pretty cozy, and she started telling me that she had been working on family trees, and that she wanted to share with me that she knew her ancestors from hundreds of years ago, of them. She knew of them. And so she said, "Can I share photos with you?" And I said, "Yeah, I love that." Now, meanwhile, I'm someone who loves antiques and I love history and I love anything that, kind of depicts someone's life back in the ancient days or the, olden days, like Little House on the Prairie time. So I love old photos. I love old postcards. And I said, "Yeah, great. Send me the pictures." And I was really enthusiastic about it. And she started with her great 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 grandmother. And then it she started showing me pictures, and she was showing me her mother's side of the family. And then she went to her great-great-grandmother, her grandmother, and then her mom. So they were black and white, and they became a little bit more modern. The interesting thing is I still don't know what this client looks like. I just know that I really adored her. I adored her in so many ways just from her voice and from her passions and her gentleness. And this beautiful story um, explains generational healing and how it works, and also explains the science of generational imprints and generational trauma because I started to do a lot of research on how this happens and where there are studies on it because it was so esoteric at the time. Anyway, then she started showing me more pictures of their wedding and then after their weddings. And so we spent that first maybe 20 minutes of our conversation looking at the pictures. And she said to me, interestingly enough, each of these women, because the wedding pictures were beautiful, she said, each of these women were very fit and very healthy when they got married. And each of them started gaining weight once they were married. And I said, that's interesting. And then automatically, the psychology of that is if it's an abusive marriage, we might put on extra weight as a form of false protection. And that happens a lot. Or if we're weight can often be a form of putting padding between our souls and our environment. It can be a false sense of keeping us safe. So I started thinking about her, and she had done a lot of healing on her own life, and she had gotten out of a marriage, and she was living on her own, and she was very assertive. She understood boundaries. She knew that she was never going to allow anyone to treat her with disrespect. She had all of those things already in order. And then she was telling me about her mom, and her mother also left a difficult marriage. So this client's father was a difficult man, and then her husband was a difficult man. Now, that we know is very common. When we went all the way back, we recognized that for generations, the women along her mother's line all gained not just a little bit of weight, but an unhealthy amount of weight during their marriage. Even the ones who got healthy and got out of the marriage, even the ones that broke that familiar pattern. So that was really interesting, right? Okay, so what do we inherit through our DNA? What emotions do we inherit through our DNA? And at this time, The Biology of Belief was that book was already written, and how we can inherit into ourselves certain emotions. But what about these very specific things? So I said, I have an idea. Why don't we do some meditation, some ancient meditations from the Kundalini meditations in the Himalayas out in India that can help to clear any energetic imprint that may be going on. And the way that we work in Kundalini yoga is that we know we can heal 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. Now that is a very ancient yogic teaching, but it's not something that everybody believes or everybody even wants to talk about. And this woman did not want to be doing anything that was yogic. But I mentioned it and she said, "Yeah, sure, let's try it." So we did some of these healings. And the most profound thing happened. This woman just started losing weight, losing weight, losing weight. And not only did she lose weight, but her mother started losing weight. This woman didn't have any children. Um, but I have a firm belief that when we are mothers, when we heal ourselves of whatever ancestral imprint is there, we automatically heal our children. And we automatically can heal our nieces, our nephews, and also our parents, our grandparents, those that have crossed on. I truly believe there's something to even being able to heal beyond this earth realm because I've seen the most profound things happen. And again, in time I'll share a lot of these things with you because there's some really beautiful stories and I feel sort of like I'm a hard drive for so many stories from people's lives and from my own life and from my own ancestors. So this is when I started to really hone in on the science of this. And this is when that woman said, "You need to brand this." And I said, "No, I'm not going to brand it. This is something that is for everyone." And I think that the universe will start giving people downloads on this because I received it. I received it as a way to help other people. And I started using it in workshops and started using it with clients. And it works because oftentimes we will work so hard in our own life and we'll do the work, we'll do the work, we'll do the work. And whatever it is, we all have these different addictions to different things. Some are more detrimental than others. Some are less detrimental. Some will really hurt a family, some won't. But we're all looking for ways to get out of pain. in life. And so we'll do the work, we'll circle back, we'll circle back. And whether it's through talk therapy or it's through EMDR, trauma healing, whatever it is, these wonderful modalities that show up, yoga, meditation, acupuncture, whatever it is, these wonderful things, they're here for us to help us heal. But what about when we keep sabotaging ourselves and we keep going back to that therapist saying, I did it again, or we keep calling that best friend saying, you're never going to believe what I did again. And that best friend says, remember, don't feel shame, but I can't help it. I did. So what I realized is that often these are not ours. They are our ancestors. And sometimes we'll be called to do something big to break the pattern, to break it for our children and their children. Sometimes it's an energetic thing. Sometimes it's known. Sometimes it's unknown. We don't need to know what it is. We just need to do the energetic work to heal it. So I have many stories like this, and I call them miracles because I definitely have seen unexplainable healings happen. Unexplainable. As I've shared in the past, I've had jobs before where I've had to go into the science to prove the science of certain things. So I started to really hone in on the science. And I started to read these studies. And oh my gosh, that's when I said, wow, this is absolutely real. So I'm going to share one of the studies with you. They took a bunch of mice and they exposed these mice to cherry blossoms. And the mice were like, so happy, thrilled, happy little guys and girls. And then they zapped the mice. And obviously the mice recoiled back and they exposed the mice back to the cherry blossoms. And it doesn't take time. We all know this from Psychology 101, right? So it doesn't take time for animals, just like humans, to have that mental training. That's dangerous. That hurts. And there's a correlation between cherry blossoms and being nuked, right? So this is where it's really fascinating. The mice had offspring, and their offspring were exposed to cherry blossoms, and their offspring recoiled. Gets even better. Those mice had offspring. Same thing, recoiled. Those mice had offspring. Same thing, recoiled. So what they observed was that there can be trauma in one generation, and that generation, obviously mice can't talk. So this can be completely unknown. Someone can be adopted and have the trauma of their bloodline ancestors that go way back generations. And we are living in a time right now. This is probably the most important part of this podcast right now. We are living in a time right now where our ancestral trauma is so triggered. So triggered. And if we have ancestors that experienced any war, our cells know, not necessarily from them talking about their war or their experiences, but from us inheriting that trauma. So what do we do? Well, we know the first thing in any form of healing and change is to be aware of it. So we have compassion for ourselves. We have compassion for the parts of us that are afraid. We have compassion for the parts of us that want to hide. We have compassion for the parts of us that are reacting and that are maybe in fight or flight or freeze mode because the nervous system does get involved. So, first part of really, really starting to do this work is to recognize with compassion that a lot of our fear is actually inherited. Second part is to look at what's happening in the world and to know that we are not alone in these feelings. And the third part is to do energy healing around all of it. So there's quite a few YouTube videos that I already have up on Karena Yoga, Karena Yoga. Those videos can help a lot. And just sitting with them, and they're pretty step by step, doing the energetic work of healing is the way to get through this because it is not of the mind. Yes, we want the mind to recognize that it's real so that we have the motivation to do the energetic work, but the mind can't shift what has happened in the past that is unknown. And oftentimes, if it is known, for example, my father was a little boy in Italy and he was running away from a bomb in Rome in during World War II, and he had a piece of shrapnel that went right into his leg. And as a child, we always saw that little scar in his leg, and they never took it out. They said it was too dangerous to remove it. So that kind of a trauma, right? I knew that. So I know that, and I know that both of my parents are first I'm first generation American. Both of my parents moved to America in their 20s, my mom from England. Both of my parents have in their own physical bodies as children trauma from war, and I know about it from hearing their stories. So of course I have that. But what about wars before then that I don't know anything about or you don't know anything about with our ancestors? We don't need to hear the stories to actually experience the emotions of our ancestors. So think of energy as, something that can only be um, changed. It cannot be created or destroyed. Einstein said that. And think of emotions, what we feel, and that propel us to either sabotage or care for ourselves, that propel us to feel what we feel and react or not react, fight, flight, freeze. It's all from emotions, the nervous system, the vagus nerve, all of these things are connected, the brain, the neural pathways, they're all physiologically, they're all connected. Think about the emotions as energy in movement. So energy cannot be created or destroyed. If we're going to think about that we inherit in our DNA, the emotions, then we are inheriting in our DNA the energy in motion that cannot be created or destroyed, but big thing. It can be transformed. It can be transformed. When we transform the energy of our ancestors, the emotional vibration that we inherit from ancestors way beyond, we transform it within ourselves and we start to see the miracles in our own lives. And the real magic happens when we start to heal for our children. And so we know this through Al Anon, through 12 steps, through life, through the best of the best psychologists. We can't change our family. We can't change our children. We can't change our parents. But think about this miracle. We can change ourselves. And in that, we reverberate an energy that can completely heal our ancestors and our offspring. It's mind-blowing. It's absolutely fantastic. And I've seen it work. I know it works. So to be continued, but for now, have compassion with yourself. Release that shame. Be kind to yourself. Get out of your own way and just start to have hope that you can get out of the stuck energy. You can step into your fullest potential and you can heal ancestral trauma and you will heal ancestral trauma. And go over to Karena Yoga on YouTube and check out some of the YouTube videos. There's also an app on iOS called Relax and Attract with Karena, and a lot of that is free. The YouTube videos are free. A lot of the app is free. That was something I created with a yoga student who's really, really amazing with technology. And we sat in his wife's closet and we created this app a while ago. It's pretty old, but that's another way to just rest and shift all of this. So again, it's called Relax and Attract, and you can just do all the free stuff on there. You don't even I think the whole thing is free at this point. I know that I'm not I haven't he owns it. So I don't think we're charging for it at all. It was kind of a service that we decided to pay forward to humanity. So go ahead, get that. Again, it's only for iOS. It's only for if you have an iPhone or an iPad. But yeah, there's some music on there. There's some nice sound healing, and then there are exercises that there's a morning awaken exercise. There's an afternoon recharge exercise. There's a go to sleep exercise, and they're just very relaxing, and they help you to shift the energy. And the great thing about that is that you get to just rest and enjoy that. Enjoy it while you're healing. Love that. And tune in to the next podcast because we're going to be talking about one of the greatest secrets to the law of attraction, which was written by a man almost 100 years ago. And the way this magic works is in a resting place as well. So, doesn't that feel good? We don't have to get out there and pound the pavement. Some things will just arrive on our doorstep. And I do believe that to be true. So I hope that gives you some hope and maybe elevates your day a bit. And many blessings to you. Please do leave comments where you can. Let me know what it is that you would like more information on or anything that you're working on. I'd like this to be a very safe community for everyone and a place where you can really share. And I certainly will continue opening my heart to all of you because I do believe that we live in a vibration where we attract the same vibration. And my intention is to live in that vibration of love. And so I think those of you that are listening or joining with me are also living in a vibration of love. And many of us are highly sensitive too. So that is, again, that's a vibration thing. So if you're an empath or you're a highly sensitive person, I've got you, and we'll be working on that too, because I certainly have that. And that's the way I was born. Anyway, blessings to all of you, and mwah, big love. May you feel held by the divine, and may we together expect the best and get it. Until next time.